Hashem Spasai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Lasacha. We have the zechus to start the Trei Asar. The first of the Trei Asar is Hosea. The Trei Asar are not these small little prophets that are all put together because of their lack of importance, but rather we understand that any nebuah that was written down Lidoros for a very specific, important purpose. And so, while these Nevi'im may have received multiple Nebuos, these are particular ones that are written for us, Ladoros. So let's start to delve into Hosea. Hosea lived during the time where there were still kings, during the time of the Uzziah, Yotam, Achaz, and Chizkiyahu, that were the Malchei Yehuda, and during the time of Yeravam ben Yoash, Melech Yisrael. What's very interesting is that, first of all, Hosea had a very lengthy life, possibly 90 years worth of giving nebuos. Who was Hosea? Well, we know he's Ben Be'eri. He's from the Shevet of Reuven, and any time that it's written about a father, that means he is the son of a Navi. And we also understand that he is the first. He lived earliest during the time of Yeshayahu, and he is going to start off the Trei Asar for us. Why is it that we're mentioning Yeravam ben Yoash? Just an interesting anecdote. Yeravam was not a very good person. He was the Melech Yisrael. However, what we learn is that when someone tried to give something bad, lashon hara, against Amos, Yeravam didn't believe it, and for that he has the zechus to be mentioned here. Now, Tchila diber Hashem b'Hosea. Hashem speaks to Hosea. Vayomer Hashem el Hosea, and he says to him, Lech, go, kach lecha eshes zenunim, take a harlot, v'yildei zenunim, and the children of the harlot. Ki zonat tizna ha'aretz machrei Hashem. I want you, Hosea, to take a harlot and as your wife. Not only a harlot, but a harlot who already has children. And so it's an extra layer of difficulty, emotional connection that I want you to have with her. The Mefarshim go wild with this, and there's a lot of controversy. Could Hashem really tell Hosea to take a harlot? So some say that this whole thing is a mashal. Others say it's not a mashal, but rather it's all happening in a dream. And the third, the Barbanel, says that no, any time that it says that he should kach, to take, that is lashon, that it actually happened. And this was important for it to actually happen. The question is, why is this important for it to actually happen? What is this adding to the story? And perhaps a very important backstory that we have to understand. That backstory is that, in fact, Hosea had a conversation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And in that conversation, Hosea said to Hashem, Hashem, you're complaining about that your people are doing avodah zarah. So why don't you just dismiss them, get rid of them, take on another nation? You're Hashem. You can take on somebody else. Don't be so broken. And Hashem said, what? You think it's so easy to take on somebody else, somebody with that deep connection? I want you to feel what I feel. And so this story unfolds. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I could never, ever take on a different nation. That is not going to be part of the picture. And so says Hashem, not only do I want you to take by Vayelach Vayikach as Gomer Bas Divlayim, so he takes this woman Gomer Bas Divlayim, and again the Mefarshim speak about why her name was Gomer, but irrespective, and she has a son. And Hashem says, call this son Yisrael. Why? Because in a short time, I'm going to Pakadati as Demei Yisrael, al beis Yehu v'hishbati malchus beis Yisrael. I'm going to visit the blood of Yisrael upon the house of Yehu, and I'm going to terminate the kingdom of the people, the 10 Shvatim of Yisrael. What is that backstory? Well, if we remember correctly, Achaz was a terrible, terrible king. And he decided that he wanted the land that belonged to somebody. And so what did he do? He had this whole court case, and this land was in Emek Israel. And he had a court case and found him guilty of doing avodah zarah, which is kind of ironic considering that he and Izabel did a tremendous amount of avodah zarah. But they put this man to death, and ultimately that was in the Emek Israel. Yehu, the king, comes and kills Achav and Izabel in Mida K'neged Mida in Emek Israel. So what's the problem? He did something that was supposed to get done. No, says Hashem, you did it for the wrong reasons, because ultimately Yehu continued along the ways of avodah zarah. And so, in fact, it didn't count that he was doing it because he wasn't doing it for the right reasons, which reminds us, so essentially he's being accused of murder, which reminds us a little bit, if we know, about what happened with Shaul. Remember, when Shaul allowed for the king Agag of Amalek to go free, that transformed the commandment to wipe out Amalek into something that was more personal in nature. You took things in a different direction, and for that reason, Shaul was then held accountable. So here too, Yehu is held accountable because he, in fact, did not do what was good, and after Yehu, the Malchus, he is going to take away Hashem, the Malchus of Beis Israel. And that is going to be done be'emek Israel. Okay, next child. Vatzahar od Batela Bas. And now he has a daughter. Now, when he had the Bain, it said very interestingly that he has a child, and that was specifically his child. But we don't know necessarily Vatzahar od Batela Bas, because one is Vateled Lo Bain, he had a child, meaning it was definitely, she's a harlot, so it could go either which way. But here, she has a daughter, Vayomer Krashmo Lo Ruchama. Call her Lo Ruchama. No rachamim. Ki lo osif od arachim, because I'm no longer going to have mercy al Beis Israel. Ki naso eselahem. I'm going to take out their portion. I'm going to send them into Galus. But as Beis Yehuda, but for Yehuda arachim, I will still forgive and have mercy. V'hoshatem b'Hashem lokechem v'lo oshem keshes v'cherev b'melchama b'susim v'rasham. I am going to save them. I myself am going to save them. I am not going to save them with war. And we know what this is a reference to. This is a reference to that miracle with Sancherib. That Sancherib wakes up and 185,000 of his men are dead, and he was about to go into Yerushalayim and take over the lands of Yehuda, and all of a sudden he doesn't. He goes home and he gets killed by his children. So we see that's what's referenced. So the Gullus is going to go first to the people of Yisrael. They're worse off, and Hashem is not going to have mercy on them, but he is going to have mercy on the people of Yehuda. And until finally, the last child, Vatigmol lo es lo ruchama, she finishes weaning lo ruchama, so now she can have another child. Vatela ben, another son. Again, we don't know who that son is, the father is. Vaikra shmo lo ami, not my nation. Kiatem lo ami, because you are not my nation. Vanochi lo yelachem, and I am not going to be with you. Then is the ultimate gullus of Yehuda as well, and it goes in gradations. So what do we see from here? So on the one hand, those of us that have been doing Yechezkel, oh no, we're going back to something that's hard and hard to hear, and it is hard to hear. It is hard to hear that there's going to be a gullus. And Hosea lasted for 90 years, so perhaps the people, his nevuahs were helpful. It just didn't, it didn't take it all the way to the end, but because, with Chezkiyahu, we know that's the last of the kings that he is with, and that is during the time that then they go into gullus. But So perhaps, we're hopeful that his nevuah is going to help somewhat. But we also see that Hashem says to Hosea, there is no way. They, at the end of the parak, is the most beautiful part, because it says, Ki atem lo ami. You are considering yourself lo ami. Va'anochi lo yelachem. But I'm not like you. I'm not going to separate out from you. I love you. Like a father to a son, like a mother to her child. There's no way that I am going to separate, but you left me in this relationship. That you have to live with. But me, I love you. Now, how do I know? Because at first, I only started to bring destruction to Eretz Yisrael. And then I took the 12 tribes away, but I left a remnant. And then I did the gullus of the Yehuda. And so I love you. I'm doing this slowly. I'm believing in you. That's what a real relationship is. That's the problem, is that we, Klal Yisrael, are the weakest link. And so this is the start of Hosea. We have an understanding that Hosea is going to be, why is it connected? Why is it in the Nevi'im Achronim? Because this type of prophecy is not going to be with multiple stories, but rather it's going to be with images and these types of experiences. And that's why it is considered in this section. And we're already starting off with a bang. We're understanding that Hosea has to live with his nevuah. You can't give tochacha to someone if you can't feel and do it for the right reasons. And so Hosea has to walk into the role, either figuratively, either through dream or in actuality, to really feel what Klal Yisrael and Hashem's relationship is and what the true state of affairs is in order for him to be a successful Navi. And isn't that a musar for us? We have to really understand the plight of somebody else, put ourselves in their shoes. And if we can't, then we can't judge them. And we have to do it always from a place of love, because ultimately that's what Hashem says. Be rachum v'chanun, because that's how I am. Be merciful and kind, and judge people favorably. You don't know what they go through, but ultimately relationships are such that we have to lend ourselves to believe, lend ourselves to forgive, lend ourselves to not be so midas hadin, but rather, of course, using our own judgment and our own way of being merciful and kind.